Hey guys, I'm Dan from ShastaBubba Adventures, and this video is the fourth in a series that's talking about controversial topics related to backpacking in grizzly bear country. And today's topic is potentially the most controversial of all, whether you should use a firearm or bear spray when backpacking. Although I hope to convince you by the time we're done that this really isn't a controversial at all if you keep an open mind about the issue. So I think it's only fair to begin by sharing my personal perspective on guns so that you can judge for yourself whether to pay attention to what I'm saying. I believe in common sense gun laws, but I also own and use firearms. I live on a ranch in Montana, and I have livestock, and that means I really have no choice but to use guns to protect my animals. And although I'm not a hunter, I'll confess that I have been forced to use my guns to shoot a mountain lion, black bears, and more skunks than I care to count. From my perspective, a firearm is simply a necessary tool to being on the ranch, no different than a chainsaw or a shovel. And it's from that perspective that I'd like to examine this question. In other words, what's the best tool to use when backpacking with grizzlies? First off, let's set the scene. Bears prefer to be left alone, so if they hear you coming or see you, they'll usually move away and you won't need to use either a gun or a bear spray. A bear charge almost always occurs when the bear is surprised, and in most cases that will be a female bear protecting her cub. So you're hiking along, enjoying the scenery and oblivious to the presence of a bear until you come around a corner and boom, it's right there 50 feet away. The bear is spooked and it charges. Now, a grizzly's skull is amazingly dense, and most bullets will glance off unless you hit it square between the eyes. Shooting it in the heart or anywhere else won't kill it quickly enough to avoid serious injury or death for the shooter. The bear just keeps coming. I always think about the stories in the journals of Lewis and Clark where they would talk about how they had to shoot grizzlies 6 or 8 times with muzzle loaders to finally stop the bear. That means that the only way to walk away from this encounter is to draw, aim, and shoot a moving target about the size of a baseball, all while the massive adrenaline is making you shake like a leaf. It's much more likely that you will just wound the bear and really piss it off. I believe that's the reason behind the statistics about the success rate of firearms versus bear spray. I'll put a link in the description below to the publication put out by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which states that since 1992, 50% of all people that attempted to protect themselves from grizzly bear attacks with a firearm were injured or killed. Those that used pepper spray escaped injury most of the time. And if they were attacked, their injuries were less serious and the attacks did not last as long. In fact, 90% of the people who successfully deployed bear spray on a charging grizzly were completely unharmed. And to my knowledge, there has never been a recorded case of someone dying in that situation. So just think about this for a moment. Would you rather rely on hitting a moving baseball with something the size of a marble, or spraying a cloud of deterrent that only needs to be aimed in the general direction of a charging bear? Also, let's consider the meaning behind these statistics. If you use a gun in the bear encounter, the result is bad 100% of the time. Either you get mauled or killed, or the bear dies. So there's no middle ground. There's almost no time to fire off a warning shot with a charging bear. Using a bear spray, it's almost the opposite. 100% of the time you live and the bear lives. Remember, these aren't problem bears we're talking about that might have to be euthanized anyway. I don't know about you, but I'm not crazy about being in a situation where I'm forced to kill an endangered species for trying to protect their cubs. Also, the bear walks away from the encounter having learned to associate humans with danger, thus making future encounters with that bear even less likely. But since this channel is all about ultralight backpacking, let's consider the question of weight. The typical handgun weighs 3 to 5 pounds. Even a lightweight Glock 9mm weighs about 30 ounces loaded, not counting the holster. Bear spray weighs 10 ounces. That same Glock costs around $450, and the average cost of a handgun is somewhere between $250 and $500. Bear spray is $45. Now, in ultralight backpacking, we like to ask two questions of each piece of gear. Number one, is it necessary? And a corollary to that question is, does it work? And number two, is there a lighter version that would work as well? From that perspective, I think there's no question that bear spray is way more effective and less than a third of the weight of a handgun. Once we factor in the cost too, I think the choice of a bear spray becomes obvious. Couple of quick tips I wanted to share about using bear spray. First, it doesn't do you any good if you can't reach it in a few seconds. So I suggest figuring out where the best place to carry the can is on the pack. I see lots of people using their sternum strap to do that, but that wouldn't work for me because, number one, I cut the sternum strap off all my packs, not to mention that I think it would drive me crazy to have the thing banging on my chest with every step. And also, I think that when trying to draw the can out of a holster in an emergency situation, the chances of whacking myself in the face are pretty good. So wherever you choose to carry it, try drawing the can to make sure that it works and practice frequently to the point that you can do it without thinking about how to do it. For me, the only spot that works is my right hip behind the belt pocket. And you can usually thread it on there by removing the shoulder strap, then sliding the holster past the attachment point and reattach the shoulder strap. I've gotten into the habit that every time I put my pack on, I snap the belt buckle, then reach back and check the bear spray. This gives me a really strong muscle memory of where the spray is. Also, I think it's worth the expense of buying an extra can and shooting it off in order to be comfortable with what that's like, and to know how far the spray goes, since you don't want to fire it too soon and run out of spray before the bear gets close enough. If you do this, make sure you do it outside and know where the breeze is coming from so you don't fire it into the wind. This is what that's like. A 10-ounce can of bear spray should give you just over 7 seconds of spray, and you probably don't want to use it all at once. If possible, try to use about a 3-second burst when the bear is less than 30 feet away, and hold back a bit in order to have a second burst if necessary. That might be asking a lot in that situation though, so I'll understand if you shoot off the whole thing at once. Okay guys, that's it for now. If you're still here, I appreciate your open-mindedness, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.